The best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. H. Jackson Brown, Jr. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Podnuts Pro. I am your host, Marvin B. Podnuts Pro is your podcast for business IT support. We are here every Wednesday evening, as much as we can be, 8 p.m. Eastern, to hopefully bring you a great show that will provide you with products, stories, and tips, all in an effort to help you run your business better, smarter, and faster. We are in the midst of our Summer Tech Series, where we are talking all techs all summer. And this is going to be just a touch of a one-off. It is still going to be focused on techs. It is going to be focused on MSPs, but there are people in the industry that when you get a chance to get them on the show, you take them when you can get them. And tonight's guest is one of those people. Joining me in just a few minutes, Alan Weinberger, CEO of the ASCII Group. And I think it's going to be a very, very good show. So we're going to do a little bit different format this evening. We're not going to be doing a full in the news segment. I'm going to go ahead and quickly go over a story that some of you have been sending me questions and asking me how things are going. Some of you may know that last week, after our show on Thursday, there was a tower collapse of a condo in Surfside, Florida, which is near Miami. It's a little bit south of me. And there were 150 plus people in the building in the middle of the night that were involved in that collapse. So there was just an update about an hour ago where search crews going through the ruins pulled out 6 more bodies from the rubble, and they brought the number of confirmed dead to 18. And this is the highest day since the building collapsed that they were able to pull out some bodies. The number of residents still unaccounted for stands at 147. So one of the things that they were able to do today was to build this bridge that would get them into the heart of the building. And the ramp, basically, it's a Herculean effort that would allow them to leverage massive equipment to remove the huge pieces of concrete, which is hindering the search. So I'm not going to go into a lot of the other details. Of course, people are wondering why and how and all of that stuff. That is not something that we are going to be discussing here, and it is not the time. We are still hoping, I know it's been a week, but they are still hoping to find somebody that has stayed alive in that. So that is what is happening in your news. That is going to take the place of our Florida man story this evening. As it comes back to tech-related stuff, I want to do my usual thank yous to people that are supporting the show. I know that we had at least 1 or 2 more patrons this past week, one of which, our good friend Jason. Thank you very much. And for all of you that are contributing to the show, I appreciate it. It helps me pay the bills to keep things going. And it is not going towards the expanded space that you've been seeing on Facebook that my office is doing. Those funds are going directly to the show to bring you techs and vendors and all of the things that we do here. So don't think that you're supporting MB Systems. And let's see here, Amazon purchases. So here's the thing that you can do. If you want to listen to past episodes of the show, you want to find out how to support the show, head over to podnutspro.com. If you use the Google browser or the Edge browser, something that you'll be able to see that you won't see in the other browsers is at the top of the page, there's going to be an Amazon bar. And I try to keep up to date with what recent purchases that listeners have done. So you can see what other people that are supporting the show have done and purchased. And if you want to go to the store, you can either click on that search bar, or you can go to the store page, which will send you over to Uncle Marv's Amazon account, and you don't have to purchase anything there. But if you use that link, anything that you purchase will provide a commission back to the show, again, helping to provide everything we do. If you don't want to shop on Amazon, you just want to give a donation, you can go to the donation page and you'll see a link for PayPal or Buy Me a Coffee. And of course, you'll see the Patreon link. So all of that over at podnutspro.com. You will see the back catalog of episodes, both audio and video. You can even do a search on the page. So if you have somebody that you missed and you want to find them quickly, just do a quick search on the episode page. That'll bring you to the shows that they are a guest in or have participated in. You can get straight to that show. All right, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and get straight to it here. As I mentioned, Alan Weinberger, CEO of the ASCII Group, basically since 1984, has really been helping us in the tech community, has been playing an important role for MSPs in business operations. And over the last few years, he's actually been speaking at schools around the country, explaining the topic of his latest book, and you saw it on the screen when you came in, called The Doctor Is In, Treating America's Greatest Cybersecurity Threat. And this is a fantastic book, folks. It's very small, so don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid to read it. But joining us now on the show, Mr. Alan Weinberger. Alan, how are you?
Hello, good to be here. Thank you, Marvin, very much for inviting me.
All right. Well, had to get you on here to talk about stuff. Always try to get you on during the summer months when ASCII's doing their events.
Correct. Face-to-face again.
Yeah. Why don't we start with that? How are they going? Because, yes, you guys are doing the face-to-face meetings.
Well, we started one in Houston, Texas a couple months ago, then one near Cincinnati, and I was at the Houston one, and a warm Texas smile. CDC protocols, the Marriott Hotel did a great job. We had over 150 MSPs there, and it was great. And the vendors had a good time. And, the COVID tragedy that we've all been around is starting to lift, hopefully lift for good. And it went very well.
All right. Well, I will be attending the one in Orlando, which is coming up later this year. I believe that is in October, the 27th and 28th. But if any of you out there want to find out where the closest city to you is this summer, head over to ASCIIevents.com, and you can actually do a search at the top right where it'll say find your city, and it'll give you all of the cities and dates. And there's still, 7 more to go?
At least that. I think we have 8 live and 2 virtual this year. So we had 10 every month. Actually, every month from now on to December, there's an event. So it's monthly now. Yeah.
All right, there you have it. So normally, Alan, we start with things such as the weather, and we talk about how things are going. You don't have an MSP, but you talk to a lot of MSPs. So how are things going, that you've heard on the ground?
Well, the book will get into a lot of the things, but basically, in answer to your question, it's become much more of a service industry, and obviously, this is the time for service in every way, shape, or form. Whether it's the new normal or the new normal, or however you want to characterize 2021, people need more service from the remote area and in offices, and so basically, the profitability is up from 220. And even for 2019. So I think generally our group of members in every state in the United States, all throughout Canada, doing very well.
All right. So you mentioned the book, and I showed it earlier, The Doctor's In. And this was a book that the timing was kind of interesting. So when did you first start getting inspired to write this book?
Well, you're right. It's amazing. It's, so many cliches, a perfect storm. 20 years ago, the dot-com bust, and then boom, saw the world change. As you know, Amazon was almost bankrupt, but everybody, Bezos, as well as anybody, saw the world change. And in the early 2000s, the cloud became promoted by IBM. But everybody knew it was sort of early, but no one's stupid. And it took a while, 20 years, And so the cloud and the internet standards have become the standard. But at the same time, this thing started ballooning. The pandemic took place. So you had a sea change in the way people work with the cloud and the internet standards becoming the standards as opposed to just desktop. And then you had the COVID virus, which required people to work at home. So all this required the MSPs to step up and be more critical than ever before. And then you had things like the federal government determining, CISA determined that they were essential critical information workers. Never in the history of the world, except for doctors and nurses, would use that term. But they kept us alive. They kept us, our economy going, and they became more strategic than ever before because of the COVID. So that happened. The internet happened. It all took place in 1920 to 2020 and 2021. So a lot of things happened a lot of cliches. Out of the disaster, out of a lemonade comes a lemon. Out of lemon comes a lemonade, rather. Right. And surely a lemon, 20, and now the lemonade is starting to happen for those in this business, in the IT world.
All right. So let's first clarify the book. It's not necessarily for us, the MSPs or the tech community. So who is the ideal reader for this book?
Yeah, I mean, it's IT 101. It's really, there's nothing in there that people don't know probably on this call. But the purpose of the book is for the first time to let the end user see how important your local technical company called MSP, MSSP, VAR, the word reseller is not used much anymore, but it's beyond just break fix. It's the strategic partner of all these small, medium businesses, the 30 million businesses around the United States, according to Small Business Administration. Any business with, say, 500 or less employees should have a local MSP. So it evangelizes the model of what the MSP is for our society. And the reason I sort of like the title, The Doctor's In, because everybody knows what a doctor is. I mean, you don't question if you have a problem or even how to live a better, healthy lifestyle. You ask your doctor, what should I do to prevent bad outcomes? I mean, if you're going to smoke 5 packs of cigarettes a day, the doctor's going to tell you you might not live too long. So, and other things like that. So the doctor, everybody knows, will help you with your health regimen, but everybody doesn't know that your MSP does the same thing. It'll help you get out of trouble with, bad actors. And if you get in trouble, they will remediate the problems you have to get you out of the problems as quick as possible. So in a lot of ways, they like the doctors in the medical world. So I saw the parallel, and then I can get into more details on why it's truer than ever before. But you want to educate people, the population, with things they know about, and they say, sure, a doctor's very important. Oh, MSP is like a doctor? Well, then they must be very important too.
So it is good that you mentioned that parallel, because in a sense, we do feel that way a lot of times, where we know what end users should be doing to protect themselves, but they just sometimes either don't want to listen, don't want to do it. And it is the same for us going to the doctor. We despise going to the doctor unless we absolutely have to. And I sometimes feel like our clients are the same way. They really don't want to call us unless they have to. So it is very apt that you should say that. Now, in using this book, do you think that it is something where we need to explain to end users the same parallel? Is that something that MSPs like me can give to our clients and say, hey, why don't you read this book and see how I can help you?
Absolutely, because the first thing was cybersecurity. The first thing the customers say, well, I'm secure. I mean, I have a healthy IT infrastructure. I've never been attacked. And besides, it's so expensive. Why should I put this software in and use this one and that one? Because it's too expensive for me to do. Well, that's what you get, the pushback. But then you can show them the book and say, look, it's not me selling you something. Here's a largest paying community in the world, probably, of MSPs. They're not selling you anything. They're sort of neutral. Switzerland trying to tell you, look, this is going to help you. But the book on the ebook is just a couple bucks. The book itself, as a hard copy, is just $10. So no one's making a lot of money on the book. but it's a way to educate people on how important it is to take your MSP as important as you would do anything in your business or your life. And one thing the book says is, for example, you go to your doctor, you might spend a couple bucks to help your healthy lifestyle, but you might not spend $150 an hour or whatever it might be for a couple hours to have a consultation by an MSP because you don't think it's well worth spending the money, but you'll do it with a doctor, but you won't do an MSP. But there's no difference. One is protecting your livelihood with your business, the other is protecting your life. But similar things. If you're out of business, you're out of business.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we have heard a ton about ransomware and cyber attacks over the last few years. Just recently, I mean, obviously the big one, the Colonial Pipeline. And, you know, you actually mentioned in the book, I forget what page it is, but you mentioned one that actually happened near me in Riviera Beach, where they lost, or their ransom was $600,000. And one of the parallels that I like to say is, if they had spent money up front to be preventative, maybe they wouldn't have had to pay that $600,000. But an interesting fact is, since they paid the ransom, they actually spent another $900,000 replacing hardware and systems so that it wouldn't happen again. So that's $1.5 million that they had to pay because of one incident, where if they had been preventative, maybe that wouldn't have happened.
Well, absolutely. And so many different aspects of this. A lot of times the MSP is much more knowledgeable than the internal staff of even bigger companies. So, a lot of times the MSPs can consult to large companies with their expertise that in-house might not have it. And that happens with the medical profession too. You get specialists in certain areas that really know much deeper knowledge than, your in-house guys or your general practitioners. And that's another parallel with the medical world and the IT world. You really want to have people with expertise, and it's not the size of the people, it's what they know. And the MSPs know about this more than anybody. And look at the big attacks with Microsoft and others. They've been very public too. You had to have remediation by people that knew what they were doing, not big organizations that didn't catch it in the first place.
Yep. So, not to prove that I read your whole book, but I like the very last paragraph that you put in there. And you talked about, if you do not keep up to date with current technology and innovation, blah, 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 then your health or your network is no better than what you get from Dr. Google.
That's it. Actually, I must tell you, I had a couple doctors vet the book to make sure that any of the medical analogies of the genome and the genes and this and that, because we're making parallels with, software that's corrupted, is similar to genes that could go to cancer and other things. How this happens, you don't know necessarily. But if you think, I hate to use this word wise ass, if you think you know everything because you know a little knowledge, like your nephew next door, you don't need a real MSP. You can get the high school kid to set your networks up, and he might not really know anything. Well, he's just going to Google, and in 2 seconds, he's an instant expert. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get somebody that knows a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And that last sentence says it all. If you can become an instant expert going to Google, and you have no experience, but just reading off of Google, then you're not going to be really good at the medical world. You're not going to be good at the IT world. You're going to be pretty superficial.
Right.
So that's the concept there.
Yeah, that's a tangent we can really go down the rabbit hole on, because it happens all the time. And I was going to ask you, you've got the doctors to help you vet the book, but I hear a lot of times, and not just, in ASCII, but other groups on Facebook and other peer groups and stuff, medical professionals seems to be one of our hardest areas to penetrate.
Yeah.
And it's not just because of HIPAA. It's just, either they don't feel that they need the protection, that, it's not them, they're not a big hospital and things like that. But how did you feel when the doctors, were they open to you really having them vet the process? Or were these doctors that were, heavily invested in their IT infrastructure?
Well, I don't have a real answer to that. These are doctors I knew. They did it intellectually because they saw the parallels of the two, probably the largest industries, the healthcare and IT, are probably employ more people than anybody, those two industries. But I know as a practical matter, when the rubber meets the road, it's hard to, the doctors, they're not, let's say, flush with money, and they're not like, a finance company. Well, even lawyers are hard to deal with sometimes. It's the professional people. Maybe that's the nature of professional people. They're not, they're watching their pennies. So I don't think there's much difference in the medical and the legal world too. So, and the medical world trying to sell IT, products and services. So I don't think, I don't know how to answer that really.
Okay, that's fine. It's a tough question, and it's a tough industry for us to crack. I know.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I hear all the. I mean, I know some doctors still use paper. They don't even care about HIPAA.
Yeah.
They say, I haven't been caught yet. Why should I? And then the MSP show all these terrible draconian penalties you can have, and if you're affiliated with it, and everybody else could be caught with a big fine. And I know the doctors, a lot of them look the other way.
Yeah. So, in line with the guru statement and the fact that, the professional people not only are watching their pennies, but they're also very smart and they interpret things different. They can read the internet, but are MSPs also partly to blame for pushing people to Google if we don't want to handle it, or that we find that there are segments of the tech industry that want to put out information freely and stuff like that?
Yeah, that is another reason I wrote the book. And that gets to the reason, what was my motivation? I think when I started ASCII years ago, the world was controlled by the IBMs, ATT, ITT. ITT made a computer in those days, the big OEMs. And it was like 100 years ago, well, even today with the drug companies. How many ads do you see on television of drug companies? You never really see, where's your local doctor? I mean, it's almost an afterthought. They're promoting the drugs and this and that. And the same thing almost from the beginning of this industry, well, beginning of the PC revolution in the early 1980s, IBM product centers and everybody else. And you didn't really have a focus on the local technical companies that you should be going to first. It's the brands. So now, fast forward to 30-something years later, the brand companies and the telecoms and whatnot still think they can do local service and still, in effect, put the MSPs as an afterthought. It's not their business to promote the MSPs. It's their business to promote their brands and their technology. But as we all know, it's only part of the solution. The solution is what a solution provider, an MSP, will create for the end user. But these are such powerful economic forces that now with the internet and the social media, as you're saying, Marvin, it's more noise than ever before. And now people have no idea who an MSP is. It's even worse than before, but it certainly isn't better. So I thought the book is a way of getting above the noise level to educate the population that it's not a brand, it's not a big OEM, it's a solution created by your local MSP from the bottom up, not the top down. And that's the purpose of the book. Again, it's the same way to get the word out on who your expertise is, who you should be relying on, not just a Google statement, a television ad, or some big OEM saying we can do it all. Don't worry about the details. So that's the reason I did the book. I mean, really, it's I think to spread the truth, really.
Right.
The truth serum, in a way.
Yeah. And you do a section on around page 25 where it talks about what to look for in an MSP. And you mentioned the fact that there are good and there are bad, there are big and there are small, but you kind of guide the business owners into, here's what you got to look for to make sure you're getting an educated, experienced managed service provider. So that's another good point in the book that I wanted to highlight. So
let me interrupt one second. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion about, well, the lawyers and doctors is licensed by the state, they're regulated. Well, if the state regulates MSPs, then maybe we could charge more and there was more credibility because the government says you got to be, regulated and authorized by a local state, like a doctor has to have licensing and MSPs don't have to be licensed. So there's that whole debate back and forth. But obviously everybody listening, and probably most of the MSPs around the country, say, keep the government out, keep the government out. But that whole regulation thing is probably going to pop up in the next couple of years too.
Well, funny you should mention that. And I won't ask you where you stand, but I know that that is a big topic because as these cyber attacks happen more, and not only are they going after MSPs and not just the businesses, that issue of responsibility, liability is going to play a bigger and bigger role. And so some sort of standardization as to how do you protect not only yourselves, but your clients, somebody's got to find a way to, put a framework around it. And I don't know what the answer is, but I know that I'm kind of paying attention because I would like something, but I don't think I want to be in a position where it's, held over my head or, I'm bent over and spanked with it every other week.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going to go. There's pros and cons to both sides, but I know most people in this audience, most MSPs around the world, would rather keep the government out. So.
All right. So let me see here. I thought I wrote down some good questions here, but we answered most of them already. Who's the reader? We got that. What inspired you? Got that. So the interesting point that I noted here, oh yes, you quoted the managed service provider as equal with doctors of cybersecurity. Do you remember that line?
What page? Well, yeah, okay.
I think it was under the preventative care section in terms of, end users needing to treat MSPs like the doctor.
Yes.
And, be willing to talk to us before an incident occurs, not in the middle of an emergency.
Well, absolutely. I mean, again, patient care, let's see. It gets to the concept of precision health. It's a term used in the medical world. How can you keep people out of, medical issues, trouble, cancer, heart attacks, whatever else might be very debilitating? And the doctor has to be educating their patients on good health regimen, good health care. And the same thing with the MSPs. There are a lot of software companies that they license. I can mention they know before other software companies where you're going to try and educate the end user. Don't click, websites they don't know about. Don't do bad IT health regimen because you can open up a can of worms with ransom attack and spear phishing and any other type of bad actor coming in. So that education, the MSP should also do to their customers in the same way a doctor does to his patient, to have proper healthcare, IT care, be aware, because the systems are very vulnerable, open, just like the biology of your body. If you think you're impervious to anything, you're not. And the same thing with your IT system, similar.
All right. So let's bring that conversation back to ASCII. I know that we're not here to promote the ASCII tonight specifically, but I think ASCII is one of those communities where we try to help each other in all of this stuff. And is there anything specific that you can point to that a group like ASCII would really be beneficial in helping the end user understand the managed service provider?
Yeah, that's very important. This is another revolution that's going on, and we know from the top level, from the president on down to everybody in the world, education has changed. I mean, I don't know, it's a good example, but a guy created Microsoft, Facebook, other major companies didn't even go to college. I mean, they dropped out. They didn't need a college degree to create that. But on the street level, almost all the software companies that the MSPs are using didn't exist 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, a lot of the integrated solutions that they're using is with technology that didn't exist. So if they graduated, say, even engineering school, computer engineering school 10, 15 years ago, whatever they learned is useless. what they learn today is through their peers. Peer-to-peer education is probably the best way to learn anything, probably anything, but certainly in the IT world, because it's changing so rapidly. And with communities like ASCII and other communities, it lets peers learn from each other. And then if it's a vetted community like ASCII, where pay a couple bucks to join, you know that the other person has some skin in the game, and you can trust them, because not only the learning, but you got to communicate and coordinate with them when you have regional local offices from companies that maybe you need boots on the ground in another state that you just don't have a presence. So you have to communicate with a trusted member where they can do it. So in 30-something years of ASCII, we've never had a lawsuit by one member against another stealing somebody's business, because everybody's in the community together. And if somebody does bad things, they're ousted. I mean, they're not going to be around anymore. So there's a method of understanding the norms. Treat everybody as you would treat yourself, and with respect and with honesty. And that's what this industry has. The MSPs work together in communities like ASCII and help each other learn what works in the field, what doesn't work in the field, and then coordinates on installs where they needed people in other geographic regions. So that's what communities are. Actually, last thing I'll say, there's a very good article in Harvard Business Review that I quote in the book, actually, about how significant communities are in 2020 and more than ever before. Not just internet communities, but the concept of, Facebook, think about it. It's a gigantic community. And it's spun off millions of communities out of that community. But communities generally are so important that the futurologists of the world thinks maybe they will have one world community, won't have states anymore, because people are closer to their community, transnational, than they are within even their own city. They don't even know who their neighbor is in their apartment next door, but they know who their MSP is in London, who they're working with. So the definition of community has changed, and the book gets into some of that.
All right. Well, I can definitely attest to that, because I am currently working with, I think 5 ASCII members right now. I do subcontracting for 2, and then I've got 2 others that they're helping me put together a big project for one of my clients, and they're not here, in my city.
But there's trust. It's trust. Like it's hard to, people in the world don't know. The public doesn't know this. All you see is the politicians talking about trust and this trust and this trust. But in the real world, how people make their living in trust, and when you see it, and the public doesn't know this. So, but this industry acts that way. It really does. Everybody should be proud in this call how people do act trustworthy to your fellow peers, and it's a nice thing. Yeah.
All right. So in writing the book and kind of formulating all of this, did you get a sense of any trends or anything to look forward to in the future? Where do you see things going with how the public treats the MSP, or does the MSP change in how we act?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is a scary thing in a way. I must say, I actually had electric car. I won't mention the brand, but I should, but I won't. Not promoting anything. But with the IoT, and obviously the big thing with Colonial, but the autonomous cars are going to be around in a couple of years. There's no question about it. And everything's going to be electric. I think Canada just required, the state of California or Canada, I don't know. In 2035, every car, I think it's California, every car has to be electric. You can't sell any non-electric cars. I think it's California, just announced. So that's where it's going to be. Now, they're all, at least Tesla, they're all downloaded software. They're all devices off the internet. They're not cars anymore. And certainly they can be attacked. And what's going to happen when that starts getting attacked? And the MSP is going to be, saving people's lives. So it's a scary thing where it's going, how free the internet is, but it should make the MSP's role more important in ways that they're not doing now. And it could be autonomous cars as one of the areas.
All right. Something to look forward to. All right, Alan, is there one particular thought you want to leave listeners with in terms of the book? Something that we've maybe didn't mention, or something that you want them to walk away with and remember just one thing?
One thing, I think it's very valuable for your customers, or especially customers you're trying to say what you do. And, you can give as he's sort of an authority at this stuff over the years, and it's not somebody who's coming out to sell something. It's a very good read, and they'll be educated about truly how important you are to their business, mostly small, medium business. So I think it's important in that respect.
All right. So let me do a quick screen share again. I want to remind people here the book, The Doctor's In, Treating America's Greatest Cybersecurity Threat, and written by Alan with some assistance from C.J. Arlotta. And then you've got some interesting forewords, Teresa Payton and Frank Abagnale. So some very good voices to have in your corner.
Yeah, they're real experts in this whole area of cybersecurity. Yeah.
Sweet. All right, folks, that is it for this episode here. We're going to do one quick thing after I just make sure you all know this is Alan Weinberger, founder, CEO, and chairman of the ASCII Group. I will have the links in the show notes that you can go and check out the book, check out the group, and get more information here. And since we did not do our usual news story and Florida man story, we are just going to do a random question. So are you ready for that, Alan?
I am. It depends how random it is. It's
They're pretty random.
okay.
So here we go. I've gone over to my random question generator, and interesting question. If you were offered the position of mayor of your city, would you take it?
Ha! Well, I've never been in politics. I'll tell you, I've spoken a lot in different areas, but don't hold this against me. I was really trained as a lawyer years ago, but I like science and I like technology. I almost became a meteorologist. I like weather too. I like a lot of science areas. But I think maybe 50 years ago I would have. But now, with everything you see, it's very important. I think mayors is very, very important because it's local politics. It's probably dirtier than even presidential politics. But would I do it? I don't think so. You got to have it in your blood, and you got to, glad handle everybody. And when I was, no, I wouldn't do it.
That's a long way to know. So let me ask this, going off topic, you mentioned you almost became a meteorologist. Now, if I remember correctly, you studied law in school, correct?
Correct. I got 2 law degrees, I must say. I was an academic. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So was this before or after law school that you wanted to be a meteorologist?
Way before, in high school grade days, when I was younger, I was fascinated by it. I had all sorts of equipment as a kid. I used to predict the weather, I got maps from Weather Bureau and everything else. And I even have a weather station in my home here, which is reports to Weather Bureau's local weather station. But I always had a hobby, but I grew up actually on Long Island, so hurricanes were very easy to see, and the difference now from the Washington D.C. are inland, so the only storms we get are big thunderstorms. So the weather's not as exciting as if you're near Florida with the hurricanes. I don't know, it's exciting, but it's more visible than the thunderstorms that come here. So
they are interesting, and we actually are on the watch. Number 5 has just formed out in the Atlantic, so that is out there. Alan, let me do one quick thing here. I'm going to do another rabbit hole here. So last week, one of the Amazon purchases that I needed to thank a listener for was this ambient weather station.
That's what I have. I have that.
Are you kidding? You do?
Oh, that's exactly what I have. Yeah. It reports back to NOAA. It's a recording station back to the Weather Bureau, so they can see exactly what's happening in your local area. I have exactly that. Yeah.
Wow. How long have you had that?
About 2 years.
Okay.
And it's set up in a place, and it's done wirelessly to that little thing in your house, and it's set up. You can set it up in the woods or any place you want.
Okay. And how accurate is it? Because that's the thing. It's in
very
terms
accurate.
of rain and wind.
No, totally accurate. It tells weather. It tells rainfall over 24 hours, humidity. No, it's totally accurate. Yeah, very accurate.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, glad I asked that.
I can't believe this is funny that you're showing this.
All right. Well, that's an endorsement, folks. Head over to podnutspro.com and click on the ambient weather station.
Yeah.
I can't say endorsed by, but obviously purchased by Alan Weinberger of ASTI. That's
Right. This is the more random than the question. This is more random.
that's what happens in this show. You never know where it's going to go.
No, never know. This is fantastic. Made my day.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. And wow, nice ending to a great show. Alan Weinberger, founder, CEO, and chairman of the ASCII Group. And we've just chatted about his book, The Doctor's Inn. And that is going to do it for this episode. If you're watching live, stay tuned. We are going to do an after show. So stay through the video here and we'll be back. And if you want to ask some questions, even random if you like, we will do that. And Alan, thank you very much for joining. And I also need to thank Alicia for sitting in the green room and monitoring us to make sure we didn't do anything incorrect. And I think we did a good job. So thank you guys again. And folks, that'll do it. We will be back here next week with more episodes from the Summer Tech series here on Podnuts Pro. Same bat time, same bat channel. And until next time, holla.